YouTube offers a wealth of advice for creators looking to grow their channels, but the majority of it can sidetrack you and cause you to waste precious time. So how do you filter out the noise and find advice that actually works on YouTube? So this video will completely change the way you approach YouTube from now on. Forget all the generic advice you've heard before. I've been looking at hundreds of videos and spending thousands of hours. Okay, maybe not thousands. Trying to find patterns between videos that are going viral and videos that, well, don't. And what I've discovered was there are 3 essential key elements to every viral video. And if you can master these 3 things, your videos are destined to go viral. You see, most YouTubers waste too much of their time listening to an overwhelming amount of advice. It's like we're all getting tips and tricks from all corners of the universe. You see what I did there? Trying to piece together this giant YouTube puzzle, but without that handy picture on the front of the box to guide us. Some creators, they blame their videos' poor performance on the algorithm, while some think that the top content creators are holding back their best YouTube secrets. But I have a theory, and that theory is that it's actually easier to get a video to go viral than it is to get a video to flop. And so I'm going to test this theory, and I'm going to ignore all of the top YouTube advice, all except for 3 things. And I'm going to go so far as to say that I will prove that going viral on YouTube isn't as complicated as it seems. This is a brand new channel. At the time of this video, I currently sit at 12 subscribers. Let's see if I can blow this thing up by ignoring almost all but 3 rules. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, this guy's either full of it or he's... Either way, I wouldn't blame you. I would have thought so too until I came across some game-changing information. So stick around until the end, and I'm going to share how you can drastically cut down the amount of time and effort it takes for your videos to go from getting 2,000 views to getting over 20,000 views. So we've all been there, right? Scrolling through YouTube and suddenly a captivating title and thumbnail grabs your attention. It's no secret then that eye-catching titles and thumbnails are the first impressions you give your audience. So before you start working on your next video, put some serious time into this. Establishing a good title and thumbnail before you make your video is a game changer to creating good viral content. So here's how I'm crafting my title, and no, it's not ChatGPT. There's one thing that most people don't do anymore. They don't think. You'd be surprised what the human mind is still capable of these days, you know? When I have a concept for a new video in my head, I ask myself this question: what are some killer titles that will hook people into watching my video? And then I take the time to answer my own question 20 different ways. It sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how this first step can release a floodgate of fresh ideas. I mean, I don't move on until I've completed this step. The next step is completely optional, but look, if you have a subscription to VidIQ, and I highly suggest you get one if you're serious about YouTube, I will plug in certain keywords from the titles I wrote in step 1 into VidIQ's AI title generator, and I'll see what I get. I use this as a source of inspiration to help tweak my titles. My last step is to take my top titles and plug them into an app called Headline Studio. It's a very useful tool that will score your titles and give you both a headline rating and an SEO rating. And when I have both of these ratings in the green, I know I'm typically good to go. So getting a great thumbnail can be as simple as outsourcing it. However, if you want to make your own thumbnails, you can use a photo editing app such as Canva or Photoshop. Now look, I'm aware that not everyone is a graphic designer, all right? But Fiverr is a great place to get some awesome thumbnails for the low. You can work with artists who create thumbnails for some of the top YouTube creators today. And either way, whether you make them or not, you have to know what makes a good thumbnail. So, for one, the human brain processes information on the right side of the screen more quickly. So you want to construct your thumbnails with this in mind. You want to place the most interesting part of your thumbnail on the right and direct your viewers' attention to it. You want to keep it simple and clean, right? So generally speaking, you want to focus on one main element of your thumbnail, and you don't want to have too much going on. You want to avoid the clutter. You want to use bold colors and contrast to make your thumbnails pop off the screen. Experiment with different colors, fonts, text placement, images. All of the top creators do this. Mr. Beast is famous for doing this. Now here's a bonus tip. If you can, make your first frame match your thumbnail. This will provide congruency from when your audience clicks on your thumbnail to what they see in your video. So here's a fun fact. We are 22 times more likely to remember a fact when it was wrapped in the form of a story. I mean, really, if you think about it, every TED Talk in reality is just a story. So the best YouTube creators on the planet have developed this skill to tell really good stories. If you want to tell good stories, a great story is typically structured in the following way. So you have to give your audience the context for the story. So for example, there's a wealthy kingdom ruled by a mighty king. He loves his citizens as if they were his own children. This is followed by some problem or major conflict introduced into the story. An evil warlock infiltrates the city and before long convinces the citizens they don't need a king. They can rule all by themselves. A civil war breaks out and the king is forced to drive out all his rebellious citizens. Next up, we have the rising action. This is where the conflict builds up and the stakes get higher. The citizens realized they were worse off outside the kingdom as they were struggling. They wanted to return to the kingdom, but the warlock had blinded them and they did not know the way back home. Meanwhile, the king was sorrowful that he had driven his people out and sent his son, the prince, to bring his people back home. Next up, we have the climax, and we all know the climax. The prince comes face to face with all the rebellious citizens and reveals to them just how good the king is, and how it was much better to live with him than to live out struggling in the wilderness. He invites them to come home. The son goes to such an extreme length to bring them home that he allows the rebellious citizens under the influence of the warlock to kill him, even though he did nothing wrong. We're almost there, folks. We have the falling action. This is everything that precedes the climax leading to the resolution. Now, there were some who had become extremely fond of the prince and were grieved that he was murdered. However, in a few days, he comes back to life. They discover the king had the ability to raise people from the dead. The prince, now having conquered death itself, invites all the citizens to follow him back home to the king and his kingdom. Last, we have the resolution. For all those who believed the word of the prince, they were granted entrance back into the kingdom to live there forever. Now, if you're thinking, Charles, look, I suck at telling stories, don't worry, I got you covered. I have a tool that has given me complete confidence in how to tell stories, and it's called Storyteller Tactics by PipDex. Storyteller Tactics is created by Steve Rowland, a former TV journalist who has experience pitching dozens of stories in his career. Now, he set out on a journey to create a formula on how to tell great stories, and gosh darn it, I believe the man might have succeeded. In his deck, you get his story building system. It's a set of concept cards that prompt you and guide you into crafting your own stories. And this is what I'm using currently to tell my stories. So if you're interested, I've dropped a link in the description below. So not only do you have to tell a good story, but you have to tell a good story visually. The way you edit your video should immerse your audience into your story. And very few people do this better than Nicholas Crystal. I mean, this dude has got a gift, like seriously. I've watched almost all his videos and I picked up on a few things that he's doing to tell his stories visually. So here are some things I noticed that he does to tell great stories visually. His videos have a great pace, right? So to accomplish this, he does something interesting. He has something moving or changing on his screen every 2 to 3 seconds. He also makes great use of transitions to help keep your attention. His visuals are extremely high quality. And if you're not an expert filmmaker, don't worry, you can use stock footage and use them as B-roll to help tell your own story. I use Elements Envato as my go-to to get stock footage, and no, I'm not sponsored yet. If you want to film some of your own B-roll, you don't need to be a great filmmaker like him. You just need to learn basic lighting and film techniques, or you can hire someone that does. Keep in mind, he's a self-learned filmmaker who studied at YouTube University. His audio is also high quality. People are more likely to watch a video with poor video quality and great audio quality than the reverse. Hello. Can y'all hear me? I use these bad boys right here, the Rode Wireless Go-To lav mics and the Rode Video Mic Go-To. You don't need to break the bank here, okay? He also uses great music and sound effects to help tell his story, so you can check out Epidemic Sound for a wide variety of music and sound effects. He also brings in other characters into his stories, often his flatmates. So don't be afraid to bring in other people into your videos, whether it be people you know personally or content from other content creators. He spends less time explaining and more time sharing the experience, and because of this, there are very few talking head clips. Most of his clips show him or someone else in action. So mastering the art of visual storytelling will increase your average view duration. You know, that magic metric that everybody's talking about that causes your videos to go viral? Okay, so before I reveal what I learned on how to 10x your YouTube results the easy way, make sure to like, comment, and wait, that's part of the advice we're ignoring, right? No, don't even worry about it. You know what they say, right? Old habits die hard. Who's that? Okay, so I'm going to deliver on my promise. You guys have waited long enough. I'm going to share with you how you can see explosive results on YouTube the easy way. It was all inspired by this book called 10x is easier than 2x. Now, this book ain't even out yet, y'all, but what I heard from it has me completely hooked. The author's premise is that 80% of what we do for our business as entrepreneurs, business owners, YouTube creators is a waste. And only 20% is actually responsible for growth. So what separates people who experience 10x growth in their business versus those who see 2x growth is that people with 10x growth focus all their time working on the 20%, and they completely ignore the other 80%. When I understood this, immediately I thought of how this applies to my YouTube journey. And if you're still with me, my friends, that is how we ended up here. To the end of our journey of running around in circles, chasing every new piece of advice, and onto a new journey of laser focus and extreme action. Hopefully this advice helped you, and if you're like me and you've always wanted to start a YouTube channel, but you keep putting it off for some reason, check out this video on how to kill procrastination for good and start that YouTube channel today. We need your content.